ballot candidates, the hundreds of candidates that we have across the country who have gotten elected at local levels, and build up sort of a stable of candidates who can make an impact in their local communities. And people can see not only can libertarians win, but when they win, I win too, and I'm going to vote for them further up the ticket as well.
Spike, how do you overcome the reluctance of voters to look at something like the Libertarian Party saying, I don't know, they aren't Republican, they aren't Democrat, they may have a feeling you're a bunch of whack jobs. I mean, how do you overcome...
I didn't dispute that we're whack jobs.
No, you didn't. And you don't look like a whack job,
No,
by
I
the
try.
way.
I try.
But how do you overcome that to convince people, no, we're hardworking, we want to give you the freedoms that you enjoy, and we aren't a bunch of whack jobs?
Well, I think the first thing is to show them what our policies are and how we would change things. I think, number one, the biggest thing that we're facing right now is that because of a completely out of control spending and out of control regulatory body that we have under both Democrats and Republicans, the government can act by fiat. They don't have to worry about the feedback of the American people. And at this point, they don't have to worry about if they crash the economy, because they'll just print out more money to fund all their political goals. And the fact that all that additional money is now in the economy, which makes the cost of everything go up. That's why we call it inflation, because it's monetary inflation. That hurts us all. And it is a government that by policy is as unaccountable as possible. We are for the opposite of that. We are for making our money sound again. We are for forcing the government to live within its means, which would force it to also be accountable to the voters and to the taxpayer.
What would you point out as the most significant difference between the Libertarians and Democrats and Republicans in this country today? What's the one issue?
Well, I think if you're talking a specific policy, I would say the out-of-control spending. And I would also, right behind that would be this use of our military as a political tool. We have the greatest people, among the greatest people in this country, who swear an oath to protect and defend the Constitution and the American people against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And then they're sent overseas by what increasingly look like our domestic enemies. They're sent overseas to fight for terrorist groups and drug cartels and foreign dictators, and our money and weaponry is sent overseas to prop up corrupt regimes across the world. And it makes us less safe. It costs a fortune. It puts our loved ones at risk. And it treats the people that signed up to protect us as it cynically treats them as some kind of pawn. And I think those are probably the two biggest issues that are facing us. And broadly speaking, on a philosophical level, we recognize that it should be the government serving the desires of the people only through respecting us and protecting our rights and our property, and then leaving the rest of it to us. But they've inverted that and turned it around where it's the people who have to work and pay taxes and suffer under inflation to serve the government, to serve politicians and the billionaire cronies that put them in office. It is an exact inversion of what the American experiment was supposed to be.
Are you afraid as to where the Biden administration is leading this country? Does it scare you?
Oh, it absolutely does. But frankly, if you look at it, this is just, he's the newest person to take us that much further down this terrible path. I was very happy when Donald Trump promised that he was going to, well, first he said he was going to eliminate the national debt, and I think no one thought he could do that. But he was saying he was going to be serious about deficit spending. He then ran up almost as much debt in one term as Obama did in 2 terms. And of course, Obama ran up more debt in 2 terms than Bush did. He was the previous record holder. Bush broke Clinton's record. Clinton broke Bush 1's record. Bush 1 broke Reagan's record. And it just keeps going on and going on. And so, Joe Biden is the newest person taking us further down the road to serfdom. And we have to change it. We have to not just make these marginal changes to government. We need a course correction. We need government to be significantly smaller. We need taxes to be significantly less. We need the federal government to be significantly less involved in our day-to-day lives.
Where does the party stand on immigration, which to many Americans right now is the number one issue in the country today, along with the economy? You spoke just a moment ago about spending. But where are you on immigration?
Yeah, so it is an absolute catastrophe what's happening at the border. And whichever side of immigration you fall on, whether you're more a closed border person or an open border person, you look at the border and you see an absolute nightmare. And the thing is, whichever side you fall on, the government has been failing us. So if you're someone that thinks, and I tend to be someone who believes that we should have a process by which people can come here in a streamlined legal manner, presuming that they're not a threat, but still having some kind of something in place to make sure that we're protected, that's not what's happening. We have government-sponsored NGOs that are literally flying people into the country illegally being paid by taxpayer dollars. But if you're on the more open border side and you say, well, this is an absolute catastrophe, what's happening? Well, that's the government doing that too, because when people do show up and try to seek asylum, they have to be, because there's no actual legal process for many of them to come here, they have to rely on smuggling cartels and coyotes to bring them in. And very often their children are trafficked, or they end up in one of these cages on the border, one of these, well, they were called camps when Trump was in office, but now they're called Joe Biden's compassionate centers for wellness, or whatever they call them now. But they're being put in these centers. Yeah. That's not serving anyone. So I think the answer is we need to look at how the founders looked at migration. They were very big fans of migration. If you wanted to become a citizen, there was a pretty high bar, and no one was getting welfare. If you came here, or if you were born here, you worked and you provided, and no one was going to be forced to give you a handout. And I think just those two things right off the bat would greatly solve the problem, that as well as having a legal means by which some of these folks can come here. Because right now, for most of the people south of the Rio Grande, the legal process is just no, which means they just come here illegally.
Yeah. Spike, as you well know, support for Congress is at an all-time low. Americans trust congressmen as much as they do journalists and used car salesmen.
Justifiably so. Yeah.
Justifiably so. But, voters keep on electing back the same people over and over again. Yeah. How do you solve that?
Yeah, so that's called negative partisanship. So Congress has like a, 16% approval rate and like a 93% incumbent reelection rate. But this is where the two-party system fails us, or frankly, it's working as intended. The two-party system, the way it works is they'll say, oh, yeah, well, you might not like what I'm doing, but if you don't vote for me, you're going to get that guy over there. Yeah. And you dislike his lies way more than you dislike my lies. And so you have people who unironically vote against the other candidate. 81 million people didn't vote for Joe Biden. They voted against Donald Trump. And a significant number of the people that voted for Trump were really just voting against Biden. Every time I talk to Republicans and Democrats, they'll very often say, I agree with you far more than I do the other ones. But if I don't vote for Joe Biden, Donald Trump, whichever it is, I'm going to get the other one. And I point out to them, they work together. When it's time to increase the debt limit, they work together in record time. Right now, they're passing they're passing FISA, where they're going to be able to spy on us even more, and where they're going to compel private businesses and anyone who has any kind of recording technology to also act as a spy. And they're doing it hand in hand together. Yeah. This is what happens when you keep voting for the same people. If they say, what is it, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results is insanity. Well, voting for the same two parties who have demonstrated that they're in on it together and expecting that to ever change is a form of insanity.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it exists in this country today, unfortunately. Spike, thanks for coming by. Good luck with the convention this week. Great to meet you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Rob.
All right, Spike Cohen here on the Rod Arquette Show and Utah's Talk Radio 105.9 KNRS. More to come here on the Rod Arquette Show.
Guys, do you know your team?
Spike, that was great.
That was good, man. I enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Can I get a picture of you two together?
Yeah, sure. Where do you want to do it?
Wherever has the iHeart logo behind you.
That one's probably best.
Yeah.
We can do it right here.
Clothing is optional. Oh.